How's everybody doing? Part of what I do is, or what I used to do, is stand on stage and explain to the youth um, what's at stake if they're going to live a delinquent lifestyle, if they're going to live a negative lifestyle, if they're going to live a drug addicted lifestyle, if they're going to live any life where they're not following the laws in society. I think a lot of the youth don't think about consequences. And so, what I used to do is stand on stage and try to explain to these kids what's at stake, uh, uh, and remind them that there are consequences for their actions. Um, because the choice is yours. A 9 or 10-year-old boy knows the difference, or girl knows the difference between right or wrong. So the excuse that you didn't know better really doesn't fly. If you're going to live the wrong way, then you reap what you sow. I came from a pretty decent family. I lived in a upper middle class neighborhood. My father was a police sergeant on the police force. um, my mother's father was the police commissioner, uh, and I lived in a nice neighborhood, and I was raised with proper morals and proper values. And I ended up in prison for 17 years. So part of the message to the youth and to anybody out there is that if you think that it can't happen to you, you're crazy, because it could happen to anyone. And I spent most of my life, 17 years straight in the prison system. And before that, in and out of various different types of institutions. And when you want to live a sinful life, as I always say, sin will take you further than you want to go, and it's going to keep you longer than you want to stay. So for those of you who are living wrong, or for those of you who have a kid who's doing the wrong thing, hopefully you let them pay attention to these few words. I'm not going to go through my whole story right now, but if your child or your brother or your friend doesn't think that it can happen to them, they better think again, and they better change. A lot of people want to change. They don't want to live the destructive life that they're living. But you have to remember, change is not a destination, and hoping things get better is not a strategy. You need a plan. I talk about that plan in different times, but you need a plan to make things change. You can't just hope they're going to change. When I ended up in that prison system, like each day was an echo of the day before, and I would sit in my cell at night and choke in pain. It was like being trapped under a steel and brick umbrella. There were many nights that I laid on the floor of my cell, clutching a rope in my hands, begging God for the strength to take my own life. It was terrible to live through. It's beyond words what I was exposed to and what I experienced during my incarceration. And a lot of the people need to know what they are in store for if they continue to live the wrong way. We're a product of Human beings are a product of our decisions, not our circumstances and not our conditions. We make choices and decisions, and those choices and decisions determine our life and who we are as a person. You know, so you have to believe. And I give an example in the classroom. I tell people, or when I'm on stage, I tell people, what do you want to do with your life? I ask the kids 15, 16 years old when I speak in a high school. I said, raise your hand for me and tell me what you want to be. One kid may raise his hand and say, I want to be a fireman. Another kid says, I want to be a doctor. Another kid says, I want to be a video game developer, whatever it may be, one of 1,000 professions. And I ask the kids, do you believe you can do that? Do you believe you can become that? And they say, yes, I believe that. And a lot of people are in shock when I tell them, well, your belief means nothing. I shouldn't say nothing, but belief isn't everything. I mean, many people believe they can do a lot of things. I believe that I would have been one of the best handball players in the world, right? But I didn't commit myself to doing that. See, belief without commitment is like a cart without the horse. The cart is just going to sit there. Commitment is what pulls the belief along. You have to commit yourself, and if you're stuck in a rut, or you're stuck in a negative life, or you're stuck in addiction, or you're stuck in some criminal life, let me tell you how it's possible, or a little story about breaking breaking that chain. If you ever went to a circus, uh, and when you go to the circus, they bring the elephants into the circus, and the elephants walk in with the biggest elephant in the front and the smallest elephant all the way in the back. There may be five, six elephants, and they're all in size order, you know. And they're all chained. They're shackled together. There's a shackle on the big elephant in the front with a little chain that goes to the elephant behind him, and it goes all the way down to the baby elephant, and they pull him along, you know. And the question was often posed, why doesn't the big elephant just break the chain and go any way he wanted to? He's strong enough to turn over a tractor trailer if he wants to. An elephant can throw a truck over. So why doesn't he just break that chain? And the reason he doesn't break that chain is because he came into the circus as a baby elephant, and he was taught that that's going to be his life. And he became used to that, and he moved up in the line through the years into a bigger elephant until he was the big elephant all the way in the front. And then what happened is, when he became the big elephant and he was strong enough to break the chain, the problem was that his will was gone. You see, he had given up. He had given up hope, and he just accepted his fate. And a lot of people have done that. They've been living the wrong life so long, or an addicted life so long, that they don't realize that they can break the chain. You can break the chain anytime you want. Because remember, you're a product of your choices and decisions. And you can do that. You need to change your thinking. You know what I mean? Because the way you think controls the way you feel, right? And the way you feel controls the way you behave. So it all starts with your thinking, and the way you respond to situations in life. You know, there's like when your brain is stimulated. I'll give you an example. Let's say you're on the street and someone comes up and pushes you, right? The first thing that happens is your brain is stimulated. Someone push you, and when your brain is stimulated, there's going to be a response there. But but there's a saying that between it's not just a saying, it's true. Between stimulus and response, there's a space. Okay? And the first thing I like to do is teach people that that space exists, you know. But the problem is that that space may only be a fraction of a second long. So let's say the guy comes up and pushes you. Your brain is stimulated right away, and then there's going to be a response. Your response may be to hit him back. Your response may be to try and talk to him. Your response may be to try and walk away, you know. But there's that little space after your brain is stimulated before you respond. Remember, between stimulus and response, there's a space. And it's in that space where we make all our choices and decisions, and you have to recognize that that space exists, and recognize that you can control that space. And this comes into every aspect in life, whether you're a married man and you come across a very attractive woman that wants to fool around, right? Your brain gets stimulated. There's going to be a response, but you make the decision in that space. Whether you're a drug addict and you walk into a house and someone's has your drug of choice on the table, your brain is going to be stimulated, and there's going to be a response. Your response may be to pick it up and get high. Your response may be to walk away. But between stimulus and response, there's a space, and you have to remember that. You know, Life has all types of twists and turns, man, and you really have to take control of it. You know, Life is difficult. No one ever said life is easy. Life is a series of problems, right? And you could either moan about those problems, or you can confront those problems. You see, a lot of people try and skirt around problems. When problems come into their life, they may turn to drugs, they may act out sexually, they may do anything to skirt around the problem and the pain that's involved with confronting a problem, you know. But if you confront the problem and get it out of the way, this is what brings you self gratification, man. And instead of the instant gratification that so many people seek in the world today, you have to look for the delayed gratification, right? And life is going to throw all types of things at you. It's like the best chess player in the world was asked, "What is the best chess move you can make?" And he said, "There's no such thing as the best chess move because chess is like life, right? You look at the board, and there's a scenario in front of you, and your opponent makes a move, and after your opponent makes a move, the situation changes, the scenario changes, and then so you have to think about what is the best move for the situation in front of you. And life is the same way. As the situation changes and the circumstances change, you have to be able to adapt to that, you know. Um and and it's possible. Like I said, it's possible for you to break that chain. um it's like when trouble time hits, when a storm hits, the difference between an eagle and a chicken. A chicken, when a storm is coming, when he sees the storm clouds, a chicken looks for cover, right? A chicken, he bunkers down. He goes under a shed, or under some brush, and he hides for the storm, and the storm beats him up. The rain and the wind or the snow beats him up, and he has to deal with that. See, but an eagle does something different. An eagle, when he sees a storm is coming, he flies into the storm clouds, and he goes above the storm clouds, and he lets that storm take place under his feet. And human beings need to know how to deal with situations. There's If you're looking for the meaning of life, there's no meaning to life, because my meaning is different than your meaning, and your meaning is different than the next man's meaning. You have to find out what it is you want to do and go after it with all your heart and soul. you know and I would say that the key number one is staying drug free. Key number one is staying drug free. You want to stay in the right frame of mind. We live one time in this world, one time. you know and if you don't think you have the strength to do it, this may sound funny, but I want you to think of this. When like I said, it may sound funny, but when your parents were creating you, when your parents were having sex, and your father sent that sperm into your mother, he sent in 100 million sperm, and all of those sperm wanted to become a life, right? And they were swimming like crazy to get up there. Everyone wanted to be there. Every single sperm wanted to be there. But only the strongest one got there. The strongest one beat out the whole pack. And that's you. You're the one that made it there. So you were a fighter from the beginning. You understand that? You had strength from the beginning. You wanted to live from the beginning. You know, my life was spent because of drug addiction, and I turned to drugs for many different reasons. That I'm not going to get into. Maybe I'll tell my story on here. I haven't told my whole story on why I made the choices and decisions I made. I haven't done that yet. But it's a very intense story. But I ended up turning to addiction at 13 years old, and was when I tried my first drug, marijuana. By the time I was 15, I was a garbage pail for narcotics, and my life became that of juvenile detention centers, group homes, rehabilitation hospitals, psychiatric hospitals, jails, and then eventually 17 straight years in prison, which is where I got myself sober and started to really comprehend or look at what life was about. I saw many men in the prison system. Uh, I was curious how I ended up there, because I was always a man with good morals, with a good heart. I came from a decent family, and I was like, how did I end up in this situation? I was very confused, and it bothered me bad, because I was the kid that helped the neighbor and shoveled everybody's snow and helped old man Izzy with the shopping bags when he came home. I was the kid that would see homeless people and want to give them money and cry when I would see them. And I had a heart of gold. And here I was in prison for taking a man's life, very confused on how my life got to that point, you know. And so I started to study psychology while I was in there. I studied human psychology. I studied child psychology. I studied something called logotherapy from a man named Viktor Frankl. And then after that, I had 17 years. So I spent my time educating myself. I took political science while I was in there. Um, and I studied theology. I became a certified minister while I was in there. And I used my time wisely, or as wisely as I could. Um, and I discovered a lot about life. I discovered a lot about human nature. But my point is this, so I don't go on too long. This is probably long enough for you guys already. My point of anybody watching this, uh, it's never too late to change. It is never too late to change. You can make positive changes in your life anytime you want, and living the wrong way is not worth it. I spent many nights wanting to kill myself in that cell, and what I had to live with is beyond words. While I was in prison, I lost so many people. Two of my best friends overdosed and died while I was in there. My aunt, Elaine, died while I was in there. The woman I was married to, my wife, died of cancer at 27 years old from leukemia while I was in there. My grandfather passed away while I was in there. And I was stuck in a cage, unable to help anyone, and looked at as a piece of garbage, looked at as a convicted felon who took someone's life. And I didn't want to be remembered that way, you know. So keep yourself clean, set some goals and focus on them. And that's really my message for right now. It's never too late. Don't ever give up. You know, don't ever give up on yourself. And know that I'm sure there's people out there that love you, and you can do it, man. If I could change my way of life, then anybody can. And I love you. Remember that. It's never too late.